Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Molly Kate, but I go by Roam the World Girl here on YouTube and on Instagram. And today I am here to share with you ways to get free accommodation through work as promised in my last video. Before we get started, feel free to subscribe on the button down below and like and share this video all you want when it's over. And follow me on Instagram for all of my photos and adventures. Alright, it's like 2:40 in the afternoon. And I'm working 7 shifts this week because I just picked another one up today. But that's what happens when you want to travel the world and save your money. You work a lot. So let me just get some coffee in me and we'll get this started. I will list several opportunities in this video for all kinds of desires and wants for whatever type of work. Whether it be working on farms, building things, teaching people, working with kids, working with animals, environmental conservation, whatever. I'll try to cover it in this video so that everybody's wants and desires and interests are kind of attended to. Today I will put all the links to everything I tell you about in the description below. The first 4 opportunities that I'll be talking about all have farming in common. With these first 4, I'll list them, I'll give the pros and cons that are general about all of them, and then I'll go into those 4 and kind of compare all of them on the small details of the pros and cons of those 4 versus each other. Alright, sounds a little confusing, but it'll make sense once we get there. So, the first one that I'm going to start with is called WWOOFing. A lot of people know of WWOOFing. It stands for Willing Workers on Organic Farms, or it stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. The second one is called Workaway. The third one is called HelpX, it's similar, and the fourth is called Hippo Help. Alright, so the general pros of all of these are that you get to travel and you get free accommodation. One of the things that comes with these 4 different organizations is that you often get free meals throughout the day from your host. It differs depending on your host. They usually tell you if they offer meals or not. It's not technically free because you're working in exchange for it, but it's still free. You know what I'm saying? Another pro is that you get a local experience with your host. Locals always know best, usually have tips on what their volunteers can do, and can even help you on your days off from working and take you places sometimes that you wouldn't normally be able to go because you don't have a car while you're traveling. Another big pro of all 4 of these is that not only are you learning, but you get to meet new people all the time, whether it's other volunteers or your host, and you get to build these bonds and experiences that might have a chance of lasting forever. If you don't get along with your host or the other volunteers, you're not obligated to stay. If it truly gets so horrible that you want to leave, you can leave. Of course, it's probably not going to go very smoothly, but maybe if you communicate well, hopefully it'll go smoothly and you realize it just wasn't the right fit for you. Alright, so here are the cons of all 4 of these in general. Often when you have a day off, it's limited because you don't have a car. So, sometimes hosts offer bicycles to their volunteers. Sometimes hosts are willing to drive you around on your days off and show you cool stuff. But if you have a host that is busy on your days off and you don't have a bicycle and you have no way of getting around and you're in some remote area, often New Zealand, on a farm, like out in the middle of nowhere, your days off aren't exactly like exploring the city days or anything like that. So sometimes it can be kind of limited on what you get to do on your days off. Also, it's really hard work and sometimes you're going to have to do things that you don't feel like doing. Plain and simple. You're going to have to like shovel poop sometimes if that's part of your work, or you're gonna have to do really heavy lifting, things like that. Not always, but you're gonna run into something that you don't want to do that simply you just have to do. Another con that a lot of people might struggle with is if you have dietary issues, your host might not be able to accommodate that. When I was looking up hosts for doing WWOOFing in New Zealand, several hosts had mentioned dietary things in their posts. They either are gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian themselves and don't accommodate people who eat meat, or they'll say in their post, we accommodate gluten-free and vegetarian and veganism, or they'll say we are not going to accommodate a special diet. So if you are gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, whatever, dairy-free, just make sure that you are willing to maybe bring your own type of food when meals aren't prepped toward your dietary needs, or maybe be willing to be flexible with your dietary needs. Another con is that it's pretty rough on your clothing. It can often, depending on what job you're doing, be very rough on your shoes and your clothes. They're going to get very dirty because you're working hard and you're often working on a farm. You're probably going to get a little muddy sometimes, or have some splinters, whatever. Rip some clothes. So bring some work clothes with you. Don't bring like your nicest travel outfits and then go work in them. Bring something that you can get dirty and maybe even possibly ruin and throw away at the end. One of the things that I imagine a lot of people run into during this kind of work is communication issues. Whether it's through a language gap when you're in a country that's not native English or native to your language. So you can run into communication gaps through lack of similar language, or you can run into communication gaps in the sense that your host doesn't clearly explain exactly what they want you to do. Finding the right host can be really great, but sometimes you might find one that you really just don't communicate with. Another con, which could be a pro as well, is whether or not you agree with the ethics of how the farm or business is run that you're volunteering for. You could get there and love it and then suddenly realize that the business ethics aren't what you agree with. And in that case, you have to figure out what you'd like to do, whether you'd like to leave or whether you'd like to try and talk to your host and have a conversation about it. It's up to you. The last con is probably that your expectations are gonna be different from your host's expectations. That's pretty likely. Although your hosts have a profile and you can check it out and they can check you out, and maybe you guys can be as clear as possible and you don't run into this within your communication, I feel that the expectations are probably going to be a little bit different. Alright, so now I'm going to break down how all four of these are different and the pros and cons of each in relation to each other. We'll start with woofing. So woofing is one of the largest platforms for this kind of work. One of the pros of woofing is that almost every farm is organic. So if you care a lot about organic farming and you care a lot about sustainability, you gain a ton of knowledge about both of those things. One of the cons of woofing is that there's a yearly fee. You have to pay a fee to the country that you want to work for. So for example, when I was planning a woofing trip through New Zealand, I had to pay, I think it was $40 for a woofing New Zealand membership. The membership does not get you to every country under woofing. It only gets you to the country that you are looking at. So when you pay the fee, you get a book in the mail listing all your hosts, which is this guy here. And it gives you a list of all your hosts, and it tells you how many children they have, how many people they accept. They give you the phone numbers, the emails, everything you could really need. I'll show you. It's extremely detailed with a million hosts. So pretty cool, but you do have to pay per country that you want to go to, and that's kind of unfortunate that you don't just pay a one-time membership fee and have access to all the other countries. The pros of Workaway is that it's a one payment membership that goes to all the countries, and I believe you do have to pay it yearly still, but at least you have access to all the countries. If you're traveling through Europe and you're doing woofing, you might have to buy memberships to every country you want to woof in Europe. Whereas in Workaway, you just pay the one fee and you have access to all the countries within Europe. The cons of Workaway is that not all the farms are going to be organic, so if that's something that really matters to you, keep that in mind. The pros of HelpX is that it's not just farms. There are a lot of different options for volunteer work, whether someone needs help building a hostel, or people need help with childcare, or house sitting, etc. There's a lot more opportunities for everything besides just farming on HelpX. It used to be the largest platform for this kind of work, with the highest amount of users and the widest variety of experiences and opportunities. It has now been surpassed by Workaway, I believe. However, there's still a huge database on what you can do within HelpX. One of the cons of HelpX is that the website's really old. They have not updated it. So it's not nearly as user-friendly as a lot of the other websites. Finally, the fourth one, which is Hippo Help. Probably the biggest pro of Hippo Help, it is free. It is a brand new website, and the founders actually pride themselves on the user-friendliness of the website and the fact that you don't have to go through multiple tabs and multiple pages to get somewhere. Say you want to see details on the host. It'll pull that up on the same page in a sidebar that you're looking at, and it makes it a lot easier so you don't have several tabs open and you're always consistently on a map. There's actually more hosts on there right now than volunteers, so if you are a volunteer, it is totally like a just world of opportunity for you. One of the cons of Hippo Help is that it is brand new as of middle of 2017, so it's only been up for about a year now. That means that it's probably not likely that the database is nearly as big as Workaway or Woofing, But regardless, I do feel like it has a lot of potential. Alright, so now that we got those 4 out of the way, and it was kind of a cluster, I apologize. We are going to move on to the 5th opportunity, and the remaining opportunities cover everything outside of farming. So the 5th thing that I'm going to cover is a website called Volunteer World. I actually found this website because I was looking at volunteering with turtles, and you can totally volunteer and work with turtles and nesting and turtle breeding season and all this stuff on this website. But this website covers a wide variety of opportunities. It's not only turtles, it is farming, it's environmental conservation, it's medical help, it's community development. There are so many opportunities within Volunteer World. I've never actually used it. So to give you the cons, it's a bit difficult because there's such a variety of opportunities in there that each opportunity or experience probably has its own cons. But I was reading through a lot of the reviews of people who have done it, and almost everybody gives it 4 to 5 stars. Even the ones with 3 stars, I never found anything bad on them. They all were pretty positive. They said they learned a lot, and they got to travel, they got to see a beautiful part of the world. Some of the opportunities were in somewhat unsafe places, so that could definitely be a con. Make sure you do your research and you're comfortable with where you're going. One of the biggest pros of Volunteer World is that you actually get paid for what you're doing. It might not be a lot, like $200 a week, but at least you're getting something, and depending on what country you're in, $200 a week could go a really long way. You also get to travel that way, see different parts of the world, and work with things like animals, people, anything you really want. So it's really cool. It gives you a lot of variety, and you also kind of get paid, and you often get free accommodation as well. So you kind of get it all in one, which is cool. The 6th opportunity is teaching English. You can get a Teaching English as a Foreign Language certification, otherwise known as TEFL, T-E-F-L. This certification usually costs around $1,200. However, there is a website called TEFL Premier or Premier TEFL. I will put it in the description below. But you pay a smaller amount to go to another country and work for them, and you get your certification while you're doing that. And they also often pay you a small stipend and help you with your accommodation. Some of the country opportunities cover your accommodation, some do not. You can choose programs that are 1.5 weeks all the way up to, I think I saw 9 months, which was in Spain. Some of the countries require that you have a bachelor's or associate's, some do not. So that's a really cool way of getting the certification. You also get to travel that way and get experience. But you can teach English in so many countries, and a lot of countries don't require that you have these certifications. I met a guy in Vietnam once who was teaching out there, earning I think $20 an hour, which goes a pretty long way in Vietnam. And so he had his own flat in Ho Chi Minh and said he really enjoyed it, and he did not have a certification. I do believe he may have had a bachelor's, but that being said, I don't know if they actually required that he did. The pros of this are that you often get paid to teach. You get to be in a new culture and new setting. You get to work with people and maybe get the sense of accomplishment that you're making a difference for somebody and providing opportunity through the knowledge of English. You get to develop skills and experience which can go on your resume, and you often get accommodation help depending on where you're teaching. In Saudi Arabia, you can teach English for $4,500 to $5,000 a month, and they help cover your accommodation. That does require a bachelor's degree, and often it requires teaching experience as well. But Saudi Arabia is rated the best country in the world to teach English. I have a friend teaching PE in Qatar right now who I went to visit while I was traveling. She makes twice as much as she did in America, and they pay for her accommodation out there as well. She's saving so much money to the bank every month, and she loves it. One of the cons of teaching English abroad is that some of the programs in schools can often be very undeveloped compared to the setting we are used to in our own countries. So you often may have to do a lot more work when it comes to developing the program itself, developing the school itself, or you could have a really lush job that's already developed for you. Some of the cons of teaching English abroad are that it's often a full-time job. You are taking on a full-time teaching job, and there are often contracts as well. Say you're a teacher in Japan, they might want you to be there for the whole year at the school, which kind of makes sense, right? So it is a longer contract. You might not get to travel as freely as you would if you were doing something like woofing or workaway, but you get a whole entire different new experience of living in that culture and actually experiencing over a long period of time the small details and beauties of that culture. Alright, the 7th thing is working on cruise ships. So I've wanted to work on a cruise ship for a long time. I've really considered it many times. but I've never done it because I always end up traveling different ways, and that's fine too. There are a lot of pros to working on a cruise ship, including that you get to travel a little bit, you get to develop a bond with this community of coworkers, you get to meet a lot of different new people who come onto the cruise itself, and there's often a crew quarter and bar and party lounge down under the ship that is made specifically just for the crew to party and have fun. Another pro to working on a cruise ship is that you get paid and your accommodation is completely covered. So you're often banking everything that you're getting paid. You could still be making about $2,000 a month, and if you don't spend it all on the alcohol on the ship during your party time, you could be saving $2,000 a month. One of the biggest things that I think is really cool about working on a cruise ship is that your medical insurance is often free because the maritime system requires that you have medical insurance. Traveling medical insurance can be kind of expensive. I use World Nomads, but that's a whole different thing. We'll do a different video for that. One of the cons is that you're working a lot. I've heard so many sources say that you are working over 40 hours a week, long hours, long days. It's really tough work, and even when you're stopped at a port, often a whole entire group of people are done with their cruise and they're getting off, and you guys are flipping the boat for a completely entire new group of people to get on the boat. So you might not be able to get off at every port, so it's not quite the traveling freedom that a lot of people are looking for. There's a pretty big lack of privacy. You're often sharing a room with 1 or 2 people, maybe even more, and their schedules could be completely different. So you could be waking up in the middle of the night if they're not really considerate, or you guys could work the same schedule and you're working together all the time and living together, which can be cool if you get along, but it can also be really exhausting if you don't get along. Another thing, which is pretty obvious, but I feel like I should mention, you're on a boat all the time. You don't get to just like leave the boat whenever you feel like. You're gonna be on a boat the whole time. If motion sickness is a huge problem, that can be a big downfall to your work experience. The final and 8th opportunity I'll tell you about is called Find a Crew. This website is super cool because essentially you can be a host or a volunteer on this website, just like woofing, workaway, all of those. However, it's for boats specifically. So you can find hosts who are looking for you to work on their yacht, their ship, their fishing boat, their personal boat, whatever, and you can have an opportunity to travel a little bit that way. You can also get all of this cool experience of working on ships that you've maybe never had, or if you did grow up working on boats and sailing and whatnot, this can be a really cool way for you to make connections and see the world. The cons again are that you're on a boat. The same cons that go with hosts on Workaway and woofing is that you might not have the same expectations as them. There may be communication gaps, etc. You're often not paid for these kind of projects. Some are paid, it really depends. I've never done it, but I really want to. I think it'd be super cool to be on a boat for several months and get off at one port and find another person in that port looking for help, go with them, get off at the next port, find someone else who needs help, work with them, get off at the next one, and etc. I think that's a really cool way to travel, and I have heard people who have done it and they've really enjoyed it. I will finish here. There are several other opportunities that I don't know that much about, but I did have written down that I'll put in the description below. I just don't know too much about them, so I don't want to give you a bunch of information that's false. That's all I have for you today. I will be back on Friday with a new video for you. I think this video will most likely be a compilation of videos from one of my travel experiences, just to show you guys a little bit of the world and another culture, and then following that I'll probably do another informational video the week after. So anyway, you guys have the best week ever. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and don't forget to subscribe down in the corner. Please like this video, please share this video, comment if you have requests or questions, and that's it. I will see you next Friday. Bye!